Atlantic Records didn't want to put it out at all, Gabriel told an interviewer. Um, Amit Etchejum said, he must be big in Atlantic Records, said, "What do people in America care about this guy in South Africa? And has Peter been in a mental asylum? Because there's this very weird track called Lead a Normal Life. They thought I'd had a breakdown and recorded a piece of crap. I thought I'd really found myself in the record, and then somebody just squashes it. I went through some primordial rejection issues." Hey, everybody, and welcome to another episode of the Audiophiles. Yeah. My name's John. His name is Andy. Received a letter just the other day. Don't seem they want to know you no more. They've laid it down, given you their score. Within the first two lines, it bluntly read. More on that later. But first, because it's Friday, yes, it is, we have a track specially selected by one of our wonderful viewers. And the viewer in question this time is Mike Summersmith, 4090 Beverly Hills 102090, whatever it is. And Mike has dropped a comment, more than one. Mike has dropped a comment in at the Sewn episode lessons, and he has suggested a track by an artist we have done before, Peter Gabriel.
Oh, yes, a return to
And
Gabriel.
yes, and the track in question is Biko. I'm very familiar with this track and this album. So Andy is the lucky pup who gets to go off and listen to the stylings of Mr. Gabriel.
Okay, I will do just that. I'm looking forward to hearing more from Peter Gabriel and what Mike has in store for me today. So let me go check it out. All right, that sounds like a chorus of kids singing something in an African language. I'm not really certain what it is. That will come to a surprise to absolutely nobody. But yeah, interesting. I wonder if that's a sample from something else or if he arranged this youth chorus in Africa somewhere to put this down. Ooh, I like that percussive instrument. I'm not sure what kind of drum it is, but it sounds good. And it came in with this kind of like ominous authority. It's very forward in the mix. Ooh, that guitar was interesting. The more I listen to this, and there's this sampling of, African voices singing along. It actually kind of reminds me of a little bit of elements of Graceland and what Paul Simon did on that album as well. Interesting stuff, and that kind of what sounds like it will be. I'm not 100% sure if it will. This kind of droning electric guitar sound or whatever that was there for a minute. That was interesting. Let's see how that introduces itself. Almost like a scream or a wail that's been like fabricated through an instrument rather than a voice. At least that's what it sounds like to me. Yeah, I'm wondering if this actually isn't South African inspired in nature, just given kind of where we were when I assume this came out anyway.
police from 619. Oh, Biko, Biko, because Biko. Oh, Biko, Biko, because Biko. Gila macho, the man is dead. The man is dead.
Okay, so we got confirmation that it is South Africa. And obviously we got a little bit of some English language, which makes my homework a lot easier on this. So yeah, 77, we're in South Africa, and it's business as usual in this police room, which doesn't sound promising given the political nature of South Africa during this period. And we have this, I assume that the song is named after the person, it's Biko, who has died at the hands of the police. It sounds like he was murdered. So yeah, this sounds like a political song. Yeah, this is sad, but really it is interesting. Oh, is that bagpipe? It's not very African.
When I try and sleep at night, I can only dream in red. The outside world is black and white,
Yeah.
with only one color dead.
Oof.
Oh, Biko, Biko, because Biko.
Music is very stripped back. There almost sounds like the resonance of a didgeridoo too, without all the up and down and the shakiness of it. Just this kind of sustained, slightly whirring sound, along with that, interesting decision. But along with that, like either bagpipe or some synthesized, facsimile of bagpipes, and then the really interesting percussion work that's going on in there as well. All of it's really nice, but it is like I think you can't really argue that it's pretty rudimentary in how it's kind of like just stripped back to just these few things, kind of sparsely and judiciously used throughout the song, which allows this narrative to very clearly unfold. So that line there about, I'm sorry, but this is an interesting story that is unfolding before me, one that I'm not familiar with. I've never heard of anyone named Biko from South Africa, but this is an interesting story, and there are ones like it throughout periods of revolution or political strife in all different parts of the world. We've covered a few of them on this channel, so they're always interesting to get into a deep dive. So apologies as I just kind of stream of conscious my reaction to the song, which is exactly what we're supposed to do here. But this idea that like you know, you can blow out a candle, but you can't, you know, quell a fire. It's all of that kind of the word choice and description and imagery is really kind of like it's underscoring like this watershed moment, like this person's, you know, death for political reasons was enough to galvanize a movement around it, or to draw enough attention and eyes to an issue like this, to then maybe you know, spark some sort of change, or an attempt, a valiant attempt at that change.
Oh, Biko, Biko, a man is dead, a man is dead. And the eyes of the world are watching now.
See, the eyes of the world are watching now. Like, it's this moment that garners attention, and it picks up steam, and it becomes almost like the individual becomes a martyr for a great cause.
Watching now.
Very uplifting sound. These vocals really are uplifting, and they sound so full of hope, and that is perhaps what eventually, you know, this idea that he's died, he's now his name is synonymous with this movement to break apartheid or whatever it is that is, you know, that's my strong guess. I know it's South Africa, and it's during a time when things were pretty hairy as a result of apartheid. But yeah, his name becomes synonymous with it. It becomes a movement labeled or connected with his name, and this choral delivery here is so filled with hope, and has this uplifting nature to it that I think it really illustrates that mood really, really well. You know, this idea that we will overcome and prevail, and justice will be served. I hope that's the outcome. Starting to fade out a little bit. A minute left. It's interesting. Mm. Snare at the end I would have missed if I hadn't waited another second or two there. That was interesting. I wonder if that's kind of like the punctuation on the end of the story being told. Um, that last bit there, I mean, I knew something was up when that fade out started with a minute left. I was like, are they really going to carry this out? And then it faded pretty quickly, and I'm like, well, that's a lot of real estate there left at the end of this track. What's going to happen here? And it sort of morphs or transitions into what sounds like another sampled piece or something like this other song or like a group reaction almost or group a reaction through music, right? Like I don't know if it's like a protest song or something like that. I don't know. It's interesting, and as I recall, the song began with something akin to that as well. I don't know if it was one and the same, but it was the same idea behind it where they're like he clipped this little bit in the front and clipped this little bit in the back and then built a song sort of betwixt that which is that's what I wonder if they're the same. John can probably shed light on that for me and what they are, because I'm sure that would help connect some dots for me as well, knowing what that was and obviously what they're singing therein, because probably come to a surprise to no one that I don't speak any African languages. So, yeah, interesting stuff, though. I mean, even despite the fact that some of the song, a lot of the song was in another language, the parts that weren't, that were in English, and even the music during all of it was able to convey enough emotion for me to kind of at least come to some general assumptions about, what the song is detailing. So I have a pretty good idea. I'm sure John can help, underscore where I am, or point me in the right direction where I'm not. But yeah, interesting. Peter Gabriel would, in some way, shape, or form, be inspired to sing about something happening down in South Africa. But to be fair, I mean, I started off talking about Paul Simon. He lived half a world away too and was inspired by it. And it sounds like it was some years after this track by Peter Gabriel was Simon inspired to do the Graceland album. Ah, yeah, I love when music and history merge and you can kind of, it almost through song documents some usually pretty horrific things that happen under the watch of the human species. I mean, we just did that PJ Harvey track where that depicted, a war-torn Middle East, and having lived through that period, and it was modern media, seeing it all covered. It was like a soundtrack to some of the worst things imaginable. So, yeah, and despite it being, I much prefer that sort of artful depiction than having to be blasted at dinner time, huddled around a television, or first thing in the morning when I'm reading a newspaper with my coffee, to have images and depictions of those things. At least music can, I don't know, kind of sand off those really visceral edges to some extent. Yeah, this was a really great listen. I enjoyed it a lot. Very insightful stuff, and I'd love to learn more about it. So let's get back to John.
Tanita Tikaram, he's back. So you've had a listen to Biko by Mr. Gabriel. What do you think?
Well, the name makes a lot more sense now, having listened to this song and being able to connect what dots I could. At first, I was like, I don't know what this is. What is a Biko? But yeah, it was a really interesting listen. It was another one of those great, and we've said this before. We've done one recently with PJ Harvey, where like human history is the topic du jour, in the song, and it's less myopic from the songwriter, where they're writing about their own experience with love or drugs or whatever, Jesus or vampires, I think are the other things we covered. But it's like it's less about that, and it's more of this almost like a really interesting way to chronicle human history through music, and it is a welcome respite from awful images on your television as you huddle around the table to have dinner with your family, or begin your day with a hot coffee and you open to the newspaper and shake it loose to see emblazoned on the front awful images of some war-torn place in the world. It's just a hell of a way to start and end your day, really. So music is a nice way of conveying all of those horrors um, while drawing, just as much attention to it, if not more, and doing it in a more artful way that is a nice palate cleanse, or at least a different vehicle for ingesting that kind of information than those aforementioned ones I listed. So, always really interesting, and I think it takes quite a bit of talent to be able to do that too. It's really easy to tap into one's own feelings and then put that to music. But to be able to chronicle some of these things in a successful way through music is really special, and I appreciate that. So go on, John. You had something to say?
Yeah, it's just also worth noting what it popped into my head that, in terms of successful social movements, they've always had a soundtrack and at least
Yes.
a song or two that, people can rally to, you know, we shall overcome, etc. Give peace a chance, that sort of thing. Whether you can argue whether it's successful or not, I guess. But there is those songs out there that can have that power
Yeah.
to bring people together.
Yeah, and without naming any specific ones, I kind of alluded that to in my reaction about how there's always these sort of watershed moments, and then they inspire songs that become the anthem for the movement. And I wondered aloud as I was listening to this if this, in some way, was one of those. That clearly slipped off my radar. I mean, this happened before I was born. Now, granted, apartheid continued, which is what my assumption is that this song is about, well after that. But this track wasn't definitely on my radar. I don't know if that speaks to how popular it was or was not here in the States, because again, I assume when this came out, it was before I was around to to monitor what was being played on the FM dials here in the States. But I'll go into my notes here. It kicks off with this youthful chorus of voices singing in what sounds like an African language. And this continues for some time, and those voices are joined by some sort of like drum, this like percussive instrument around the 20-second mark. Now, it's no secret to John and myself, and anyone with a keen eye enough who watches our videos, that I am a huge fan of Paul Simon and his masterpiece album, Graceland, which is one of my all-time favorites. And I'm getting a lot of I feel like there are similarities here. This idea of a Western artist tapping into South African sounds, or what I assume are South African sounds in this song, what I know are South African sounds in the album of Graceland. And I'm sort of drawing those comparisons, and I'm enjoying what I'm hearing. It's at this point, speaking of hearing things, that I hear the introduction of this interesting droning guitar sound, and shortly thereafter, the disappearance of the vocals that I was talking about earlier. And in their wake is this fading scream-like sound that I'm sure is fabricated via some instrument, but it sounds like like a wail, like a human like bellowing out. No idea what it is, but it was very interesting. We get a few of these guttural sounds akin to like a whoa, whoa, very, kind of a primitive sound, or to these Western ears, I should say anyway. I'm sure they're rich in cultural relevance that go back, God, ages in the cultures of the African continent. So that's further underscoring this whole African vibe I'm getting, which is really hard to avoid at this point. Um, and that comes in just before the that same droning gets guitar sound reappears, which heralds in Gabriel's voice. And we are barely into the opening lines when it is confirmed that the song is inspired or somehow related to South Africa, as I catch a reference to Port Elizabeth. Also, there is an allusion to September of 77. So we not only have a place, but we have a time as well. He then mentioned something about it being business as usual in Police Room 619 before the song launches into the chorus. And I mean, I know enough. Unfortunately, the what awful things can happen in certain police rooms transcends continents and moments in history. They from the gulag to what's happening in 619 in Port Elizabeth to what could be happening down in the Baltimore City precinct right now as we speak between a juvenile African American and a white police officer. This stuff is prevalent throughout history, so I'm getting an idea that there's some seedy shit happening um, in this room 619. And while the chorus does have the lines delivered in another language, it resolves on the man is dead in English, which leads me to think that this Biko was a gentleman under arrest by South African police who lost his life whilst in their custody, as I connect these lyrical dots. The music is still pretty rudimentary or stripped back with a couple of percussive instruments and something in the distance that has this bagpipe quality to it. I don't know if it's an actual bagpipe or if it's a synthesizer set to bagpipe mode, but it's definitely there, which is a really interesting instrument choice for a song about South Africa, unless I don't know about the importance or relevance of bagpipes in South Africa and how they migrated their way down there. But yeah, I was caught a bit off guard by hearing that. There's also this buzzing or whirring sound of something like a faint resonant note on a didgeridoo, which is another instrument completely alien to South Africa, though they may have a version or something that is similar to it that makes us that kind of that low when it's not super warbly, the didgeridoo, and it kind of hangs on that one kind of note where it's just like there was something faint like that was happening as well. I'm not sure what it was. Um, I then catch with much clarity a stanza from Gabriel during which he sings, "You can blow out a candle, but you can't blow out a fire. Once the flames begin to catch, the wind will blow it higher." So it sounds like this man's death, just based off that kind of imagery and the word choice. I mean, this idea of not being able to put out a fire and the fire being symbolic of some sort of revolutionary or cultural movement has been used plenty throughout the annals of time. So it makes me think that this man's death was something like that, this watershed moment during a point of political upheaval in this case, South Africa. Um, we then get treated to a longer version of the portion that features those guttural woes, which are now broken up by bits of vocals by Gabriel, during which he sings, "And the eyes of the world are watching now, watching now." And just before I had mentioned this, just before this part, availed itself, I was thinking about, again, back to that whole flame and, this galvanizing moment that garners the attention of the world or outside forces. And then he delivers this line, and it is sort of like that, right? You start off with a spark that becomes something akin to the flame of a candle that eventually snowballs into this giant, inferno that can be seen for distance and from a distance, and it garners the attention. And I think that that's what's happening here, and it's really well depicted through music here by Peter Gabriel. More of those group vocals return as their voices sound ascendant and uplifting, almost like they're filled with hope, which further illustrates how this man's death has snowballed into a larger movement, further, moving the people of South Africa and gaining the attention of the people outside of it. So all of it is like very sequential, and it looks like it makes sense the way each line kind of unfolds, like this sort of like something going, like in today's terms, something that's viral, like that would go viral on the internet. It's going viral across the land and across lands. So yeah, very, very cool how this all is easily translated, like, or understood through this, I don't know, at this point, or these sequential point, a minute and a half of music. I know that to this point the song is longer, but the order of this whole candle flame to the world's eyes to this uplifting, you've created a movement type atmosphere they have with these group vocals is really, really great. How it all kind of dovetails into one another. So yeah, it continues on to it starts to fade out again. We've run into this recently where I'm like, Jesus Christ, this is pretty early for a fade out. You know what I mean? We're a minute in, it's already starting to show itself, and then fades out rather quickly, which still leaves 30 seconds or so of music that needs to be filled in. And what they do is they bring in again this sort of, I don't know if it's the same sample or and I don't even know if it's a sample that they used. I don't know if he got a bunch of kids like a youth choir into the booth and said, this is what we want to do. But that same idea, I don't think it's the same song or maybe even the same group of people, but this idea of bookending the song with this sort of organic sound of South Africa. And in this case, you have it at the end, and it almost sounds like people that are like peacefully protesting and groups singing against each other. It has that sort of feel to it. And then that goes on for a bit as it comes to an end, and then the song is kind of punctuated by the rap of a snare, which really caught me off guard, and I had almost stopped it because I assumed we were clear. But with about 4 seconds left, you hear that very abrupt and forward drum hit, which to me almost could be symbolic of several things. I mean, at worst, a gunshot. At best, this musical punctuation point to illustrate that with his death and the revolution or protest that it sparked, that it led to something that finally brought justice to him and his people. I'm not sure, but it was too weird to just been put in there frivolously. I'm sure it serves some sort of purpose. Obviously, a lot of the vocals in this track were delivered in a language foreign to me. That's a surprise to absolutely fucking nobody. But you could still feel the sentiment in them. And even if you couldn't, Gabriel provides enough lyrics in English to help you piece together a narrative here. And it sounded like a song about political persecution and murder. And given what I know, I assume it is inspired by some real life atrocity that occurred under South African apartheid. I don't know who this gentleman is, or if his name is fictional, though the story is non-fictional. But either way, I think it's a really interesting story told through music about a very sad but also interesting time in human history. So yeah, spill the beans, John. Tell me more. Tell me where I'm right. Tell me where I'm wrong, and tell me where I just flat out don't know.
Fair enough. Thanks, Andy. So, as I think we said at the top of the show, we have done an episode regarding Peter Gabriel before, a while back,
Yeah.
2023, and Salisbury Hill. So I'll put a link into it there. You can go there. I'll talk more about sort of Peter Gabriel and how it started off and Genesis and going solo, etc., etc. We'll just concentrate on this album and this particular song. It's a great recommendation by Mike, and it's very interesting. And if you don't know all the bits and pieces, it's even more interesting. So this comes from the album Peter Gabriel. As previously mentioned, his first 4 albums were called Peter Gabriel. So this is often referred to as Melt, due to its cover, like the other Car, Security, and Scratch, the other one. So this is his 3rd solo album. It was released in May 1980. It's classified as art rock, post-punk, and progressive pop. The album was produced by Steve Lillywhite, who's cropped up a few times,
Yeah.
and it has been acclaimed as Gabriel's artistic breakthrough as a solo artist. AllMusic wrote that it established him as one of rock's most ambitious and innovative, I only said magicians then, musicians. So personnel on this album, really interesting. You'll be surprised. In terms of this song, there's some others, but so Peter Gabriel, this is for the whole album: vocals, piano, synthesizer, whistle, and drum pattern on Biko. They have this thing they call vocal drums. Larry Fast, synthesizer and bagpipes on Biko. Now, depending on which you read, it is bagpipes or it is synthetic bagpipes.
Oh,
And
so it's
both
still a
accounts,
mystery.
it's probably synthesized, but who knows?
Yeah.
David Rhodes guitar. He had two drummers for the whole album. Um, and they sort of did different tracks, but they both played on this one. Jerry Marotta, drums, and Phil Collins. Yes, Phil
Hmm.
Collins, um, drums. But on this track, surdo, which is a bass drum, a large like tom,
Yeah.
used in Brazilian music,
Oh,
and it's like pop you hear in Biko. And Dave Ferguson, he provided screeches on Biko. That's what you heard.
okay.
Now,
So I've got the screech. I've got the confirmation on the bagpipes. Whatever that, I don't even know what that was, but there was something
I don't
happening.
know. It will be a synthesizer thing going on there.
Probably. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
So on the rest of the album, we also had some guest appearances. Robert Fripp, he plays electric guitar on 1, 2, 3 tracks. Dave Gregory from XTC
Hmm.
plays electric guitar on 2 tracks. And a certain Paul Weller plays electric guitar on a track. You have John Giblin on bass, Tony Levin, Chapman stick. I don't even know what that is. Morris Pert percussion, Dick Morrissey saxophone, Kate Bush backing vocals on 2 tracks, and he would later go on to do a very famous duet with her.
Wow.
Steve Lillywhite and Hugh Pagnam whistles on Games Without Frontiers. And of course, production was Steve Lillywhite producing and Hugh Pagnam engineering. Hugh Pagnam went on to do a lot with XTC.
Hmm.
So, um, interesting, the opening track of this album, Intruder, has been cited as the first prominent use of the gated reverb drum sound. So that is where they reverb the drum sound, but then they cut off the tail of it. So instead of is you get this quite very 80s sounding drum. Lily White explained Gabriel didn't want the drummers to use cymbals. So there's no cymbals in this album at all.
Wow.
And I've been really experimenting with this ambience thing, which actually started with the first Susan the Banshees album. When you listen, you can hear elements of this gated room sound, big compressed room sound that I did on the Banshees. I've been pushing and experimenting before, like with the psychedelic furs on Sister Europe, all done before the Peter Gabriel album. So this sound was cited by Public Image Limited as an influence on the sound of their third album, Flowers of Romance, in 1981, whose engineer, Nick Looney, was in turn employed by Phil Collins to assist him on his debut album, Face Value, in 1981 as well, which contains the single In the Air Tonight, the primary song that made the gated reverb drum sound famous, as in exactly. This album was also the first album, one of the first, to use the Fairlight CMI sampling synthesizer. So it has lots of these subtle sampled sounds throughout the whole album. And it was probably one of those that you heard doing that.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Coincidentally, Paul Weller was recording with the Jam in a nearby studio. And he contributed. Gabriel had said that I like the Jam a lot. They're one of the new groups who have written the best songs. They're really very good. And he believed that Weller's intense guitar style was ideal for the track that he contributed to. The album cover shows an image of Gabriel in which the left side of his face appears to be melting. The effect was achieved by repeatedly taking his picture with a Polaroid SX70 instant camera, and then using various objects to smear and distort the pictures as they develop. So while they come out instantly and wet, and they're doing all that and that's how they achieve that effect. The photos
Cool.
are taken in color, and then the final distorted image is reshot in black and white. So that's cool. Because of course they didn't have like computer technology to piss about with the photos back in
Right.
1980.
Yeah.
So it was really interesting. Upon hearing mixes of session tapes in early 1980, Atlantic Records A&R executive John Kalodner deemed that the album was not commercial enough for release and recommended that Atlantic drop Gabriel from its roster. Atlantic Records didn't want to put it out at all, Gabriel told an interviewer. Amit Etchington said, he must be big in Atlantic Records, said, what do people in America care about this guy in South Africa? And has Peter been in a mental asylum? Because there's this very weird track called Leave the Normal Life. They thought I'd had a breakdown and recorded a piece of crap. I thought I'd really found myself in the record, and then somebody just squashes it. I went through some primordial rejection issues. So the album was released by Mercury Records instead in the States. It was a commercial success, being his first album to get to the #1 spot in the UK, and it reached number 22 in the US Billboard charts, which is its highest position to date. In addition, the single from the album, Gaze Without Frontiers, became his biggest hit to that point, hitting #4 in the UK singles chart. Rolling Stone described the album as a tremendous record that sticks in the mind like the haunted heroes of the best film noirs. AllMusic described it, said, each aspect of the album works, feeding off each other, creating a romantically gloomy, appealingly arty masterpiece. It's a kind of record where you remember the details of the production as much as the hooks or the songs, which isn't to say it's all surface. It's just that the surface means as much as the songs, since it articulates the emotions as well as Gabriel's cubist lyrics and impassioned voice. He wound up having albums that sold more or generated bigger hits, but this third Peter Gabriel album remains his masterpiece. So in 1989, Melt was ranked number 46 in Rolling Stone's list of 100 best albums of the 80s. In 2000, Q magazine placed the album at number 53 in its list of 100 greatest British albums ever. In 2018, Pitchfork rated Peter Gabriel at number 125 in its revised and expanded list of the 200 best albums of the 1980s. God, even the list they do are annoying. 200 best. Anyway, in 2020, Rolling Stone included this record in their 80 greatest albums of 1980, praising Gabriel for a haunting LP that touches on political assassinations, Family Snapshot, the futility of war, Games Without Frontiers, and the brutal murder of South African activist Steve Biko in Biko. They wrote, he made more popular albums after this one, but never better ones. Was also included in the book 1001 albums you must hear before you are sent to the headmaster for detention. And here it is, Peter Gabriel 3, aka Melt.
Yeah,
We've got the right page. There you go. On this as well, we have the Cramps, songs the Lord taught us. Dead Kennedys, Fresh Fruit for Rotten Vegetables, fantastic. And the Soft Boys, Underwater Moonlight, which we have covered. The Cure, 17 Seconds, Echo and the Bunnyman, Crocodile. This is another really, really good year. Back in Black, oh my word. Motorhead, Ace of Space, Killing Joke, Talking Heads, Remaining Light, Joy Division, Closer, bloody hell, and it goes on. What a time to be alive.
truly.
So for this song, Gabriel crafted the basic track for Biko in 1 month, but then he spent 1 year refining the lyrics. Soon after its release, a copy of Biko was seized by South African customs and submitted to the Directorate of Publications, which banned the song and the album on which it featured for being critical of apartheid, calling it harmful to the security of the state. Despite enduring popularity outside Africa, it wasn't heard within the country itself. The song received really strong positive response from the critics and was frequently cited as a highlight of the album. Sounds magazine said the song was, quote, so honest you might even risk calling it truth. And AllMusic called Biko a stunning achievement for its time and went on to say that it's odd that such a bleak song can sound so free and liberating.
Yeah.
So the lyrics. So the intro that you hear, I will get into this in a second, but it is lyrics from a song, South African song in the kosher language. And I won't attempt it, but I will give you a translation in a bit. And then Mr. Gabriel, and there's a few ha-has, and then, as you say, that sort of rhythmic breathing was almost ritualistic. And then Mr. Gabriel starts. September 77, Port Elizabeth, weather fine. It's like a news report. It was business as usual in police room 619. Oh, Biko, Biko, because Biko. Oh, Biko, Biko, because Biko. Yila Moja. The man is dead. The man is dead. And then we get these I was going, ha, 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 ha. When I try and sleep at night, I can only dream in red. The outside world is black and white, with only one color dead. Oh, Biko, Biko, because Biko, 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 because Biko. Yila Moja, Yila Moja, the man is dead, the man is dead. You can blow out a candle, but you can't blow out a fire. Once the flames begin to catch, the wind will blow it higher. Oh, Biko, Biko, because Biko, 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 because Biko. Yila Moja, the man is dead, the man is dead. And the eyes of the world are watching now, watching now. Oh, and then it goes into the ohs, said Biko, Biko, said Biko, Biko, oh. And then it finishes with another, as you quite right said, South African song. So the first recording is clandestine recording done by journalists at the funeral of Steve Biko. That's that first bit you hear.
Okay.
This particular song, and I really apologize for the pronunciation here, is called Ngomla Sibayayo, and is one of the many apartheid songs sung by the Africans living in South Africa as a coping mechanism, kind of like We Shall Overcome, like we mentioned.
Yeah.
The lyrics for the song translate from kosher into English as, on the day we return, on the day we return, on the day we return, blood will be shed. On the day we return, on the day we return, on the day we return, blood will be shed. Vorster will weep, Vorster will weep. On the day we return, blood will be shed. On the day we return, on the day we return, blood will be shed. And so that second one at the end is another clandestine recording from the funeral. This song is Senzenai Na, which translates to What Have We Done? And it's a song that's held on par with We Shall Overcome. And it's another apartheid song sung in South Africa, again, as a coping mechanism. And it says in the notes here, note the end of the song, the recording ends with a double drum beat reminiscent of the gunshots that did cut off the singers at the funeral. So they did fire shots to keep them quiet.
Jesus.
So, okay, so just a little bit of background for people who don't know. I think I said this to you off camera, that I think that probably because the UK was more involved in the politics and the history of empire building in Africa, the continent, that the apartheid movement and the anti-apartheid movement was probably bigger culturally in the UK than it was in the States. Anyway, Bantu Stephen Biko was an anti-apartheid activist who was a founding member of the South African Student Youth Organization in '68 and the Black People's Convention in '72. Through these groups and other activities, he promoted the idea of the Black consciousness movement and became a prominent member of the resistance to apartheid in the '70s. The government of South Africa placed a banning order on him in 1973, preventing him from leaving his hometown, meeting with more than one person, publishing his writing, and speaking in public. In 1977, Biko broke his banning order by travelling to Cape Town, hoping to meet Unity Movement leader Neville Alexander. Biko drove to the city with his friend Peter Jones on the 17th of August, but Alexander refused to meet with Biko, fearing that he was being monitored by the police. So Biko and Jones drove back towards King William Town, but on the 18th of August, they were stopped at a police roadblock near Grahamstown. Biko was arrested for violating his order, and Jones was also arrested at that roadblock. Jones was subsequently held without trial for 533 days, during which time he was interrogated on numerous occasions. So the security services took Biko to the Volmer police station in Port Elizabeth, where he was held naked in a cell with his legs in shackles. On the 6th of September, he was transferred from Volmer to room 619 of the security police headquarters in the Salam building in central Port Elizabeth, where he was interrogated for 22 hours, handcuffed and in shackles and chained to a grill. Exactly what happened has never been ascertained, but during the interrogation, he was severely beaten by at least one of the 10 security police officers. He suffered 3 brain lesions that resulted in a massive brain hemorrhage on 6th September. Following this incident, Biko's captors forced him to remain standing in shackles to the wall. The police later said that Biko had attacked them with a chair and forced them to subdue him and place him in handcuffs and leg irons. Biko was examined by a doctor, Ivor Lang, who stated there was no evidence of injury on Biko.
Okay.
Later scholarship has suggested that Biko's injuries must have been obvious. after a 22-hour beating, you'd show some signs.
Yeah.
He was then examined by two other doctors who, after blood tests showed blood cells to have entered Biko's spinal fluid, agreed that he should be transported to a prison hospital in Pretoria. On the 11th of September, police noted the speed of their action. On the 11th of September, police loaded him into the back of a Land Rover, naked and manacled, and drove him 740 miles to the hospital. There, Biko died alone in a cell on the 12th of September 1977. According to an autopsy, an extensive brain injury had caused centralization of the blood circulation to such an extent there had been intravasal blood coagulation, acute kidney failure, and uremia, which I've not heard before, which is urea in the blood. Basically, your kidneys are leaking out.
Yeah.
He was the 21st person to die in a South African police prison in 12 months, and the 46th political detainee to die during interrogation since the government introduced laws permitting imprisonment without trial in 1963. Yeah, just on that note, so he gained fame through so various people sort of publishing his plight because he was never arrested or even charged with anything, but he was beaten to death. So he became the first real prominent sort of person of cause, probably more so than Mandela. Mandela sort of came more, I think, to the forefront in the 80s. But remember, anyone for the ANC or anti-apartheid was classed as terrorists by Her Majesty's government in this country. So Mandela, all of those, they were just terrorists.
That's ridiculous.
But that's the way it went back then. And they would then welcome what's his name from Chile instead, the guy who killed tens of thousands of his own people. But anyway, after the abolition of apartheid in 1990, I think it was, I do remember Mandela being freed from Robben Island prison in 1990, and we were told about it. You would have been a toddler there, I should imagine.
Yeah.
But I remember sitting on the sofa being told it's going to happen, and we watched, and we didn't know what the guy who would look like. We just had these pictures of him from when he was arrested in the 60s. And out comes this fairly jovial-looking grey-haired guy. Hang on a minute, is that Nelson Mandela? And he was like, and sort of walking at a funny gait because he'd been tortured. So
right.
much.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's just amazing, really.
Jeez. Yeah, I had no idea the tale of this martyr of the apartheid, rebellion and movement. It's incredible.
I mean, we touched on it before about the songs, and probably the most famous one was the Special AK, which is a thing from the Specials. They had Free Nelson Mandela, but before that, the other big one was this song, and they were the two really big sort of. There was others as well, obviously, but yeah, just really interesting. So, in 1994, a Truth and Reconciliation Commission was established to investigate past human rights abuses. The commission made plans to investigate Biko's death, but his family petitioned against this on the grounds that the commission could grant amnesty to those responsible, which they tended to do to try and get to the truth. But thereby it would prevent the family's right to justice and redress. So in 1996, the Constitutional Court ruled against the family, allowing the investigation to proceed. 5 police officers, Harold Snyman, Gideon Neelvoet, Ruben Marks, Dantje Siebert, and Johan Beneke, appeared before the commission and requested amnesty in return for information about the events surrounding Biko's death. In December 1998, the commission refused amnesty to the 5 men. I guess their bolts were already shot, really, because they've appeared and asked for, you don't ask for amnesty if you've done nothing. So, yeah. But they refused amnesty for the 5 men. This is because their accounts were conflicting and thus deemed untruthful, and because Biko's killing had no clear political motive but seemed to have been motivated by ill will or spite. So they just kicked the shit out of him because they wanted to. In October 2003, South Africa's Justice Ministry announced that the 5 policemen would not be prosecuted because of the statute of limitations had elapsed and there was insufficient evidence to secure a prosecution. In September 2025, last month, the month before, the South African government reopened an investigation into Biko's death. So we'll see what happens.
Good.
But
Hopefully
yeah,
justice
really,
gets served.
yeah, but really interesting. And you remember you were mentioning obviously about Mr. Simon, etc. But I think for the previous episode, we mentioned that Peter Gabriel had set up WOMAD, whatever year that was, 1980, 81, whatever it was, without me referring to my notes. So he was first involved in world music, right
Hmm.
at the very, very start. So yeah, but this is a
Yeah,
really interesting chat. It's a great chat by Mike,
absolutely.
um, and particularly if you hadn't heard the story before, really, really powerful stuff. Anyway,
Yeah, yeah, it's a rare occasion where the song is really good, but the story of it is even more interesting.
powerful, powerful.
You know.
Okay, I shall wrap things up. Thanks, listener Sandy.
Thank you,
Folks
Mike.
out there. Yeah, thanks again, Mike, for recommending this. Great shout. Folks out there, please tell us what you think. Please do hit the like button if you like this and drop some comments. We'd love to hear from you. Yeah, really interesting song. Peter Gabriel's such an interesting guy anyway, and a real talent. Not everything he does absolutely hits the mark, but when he does, it's really, really interesting. Um, so yeah, I'd love to hear from you. If you haven't subscribed already, please do. We'd love to have you on board. Prop this old leaky tugboater, whatever you want to say. And if you've got songs that you want us to listen to, you can drop a comment in any of the episodes, and we will add it to the list. And if at least one of us doesn't know it, then it will be scheduled for a future date
Absolutely.
somewhere over the rainbow. That being said, thanks so much for watching, and we'll see all of you on the next episode of the Audiophiles.
See you later, guys.